Hello, hello. Thank you for being here. Thanks for having me. Very, very excited to be here in Dubai. And the subject that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is gamification. And as the previous speaker was talking about, I'm sure that many of you feel like we're in the middle of sort of an engagement crisis. You might not use the word crisis to describe it, but you might feel like me that people don't interact with each other the way they used to. That maybe they spend a lot of time looking down, like many of you are now, or even, I'm sure many of you have seen when you go out to dinner, a table of people standing there and every single person is looking at their phone, right, while they're eating dinner. Nobody's talking to each other. And if you feel like this is a crisis, if you have employees or you have customers or people that you're trying to reach, it turns out that you're actually right. The data is starting to back up how much of a crisis this actually is. So for example, in the United States, in the last 30 days, 4/5 of the population, 80% of people in the US, have watched a television show with a second or third screen open. You probably think that number's a little low, right? When was the last time you watched a TV show without something open? But the crazy part about this to me, the crazy part about this particular engagement challenge to me, is that I'm not that old. I'm 40 years old. I look good, right? But I'm 40. And I remember that not that long ago, television was our escape. It was our distraction. And now we need a distraction from the distraction just to get through 22 minutes. A TV show is only 22 minutes. Why can't we just sit and watch it for 22 minutes? And it's because something has fundamentally changed in our brains. Now, many of us think, okay, no big deal, haha, second screen, that's great. But what are the business implications of this engagement crisis? And let me share with you probably the biggest one. Some years ago, I was working with a major car company, one of the world's largest, and they said, we have a problem, and the problem is that teenagers in the United States are, for the first time in history, not interested in driving anymore. So their interest in driving is on the decline. Since the beginning of the car, this has never happened before. And I'm sure that here in Dubai, you don't see that as much in the traffic jams on the street. But in the US, interest in driving is on the decline. And I said, okay, this is very strange, because when I was 16 years old, and I grew up in Canada, when I was 16, the day I turned 16, I went to get my driver's license. That day. Because what did I want more as a teenager than being able to drive? And what teenager doesn't want to drive? I failed my test the first time, but it's okay. I got it the second time I tried. Why do American teenagers not want to drive? And they said, oh, you know, we did all this research. So number one, they don't want to hurt the environment, right? Greening. Number two, sharing economy. They don't want to own stuff. They want to share cars. But the biggest reason, the single biggest reason that American teenagers do not want to drive cars is that they have heard the lessons about texting and driving and are choosing not to drive. So just think about it for a second. The government, the media has been saying, do not text and drive, it's very dangerous. So American teenagers said, okay, cool, we won't drive. Instead, we'll text. And that's what's actually happening. And it turns out, funnily enough, it's not actually text, it's Instagram is the single biggest reason why American teenagers don't want to drive. Now, for those of you who work in social media or who use social media, who think about social media, if I had said to you 5 years ago that Instagram was going to kill the car, what would you have said? You would have said, that's crazy, Gabe, there's no way. Instagram's never going to kill the car, we're going to make a car with Instagram integrated into it. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter how much you integrate Instagram into a car. People will still prefer to do whatever is most fun. And at the heart of that is the power of games, because it's the game-like properties of Instagram and other compelling social media applications that actually makes them so sticky. The concept behind that is called gamification. It's using the power of games, loyalty programs, and behavioral economics to engage audiences, solve problems, and change people's behavior. Now, Instagram is not a game in the traditional sense of the word. but it has many game-like characteristics. It's got some kind of points you can follow. It has kind of an ersatz leaderboard that you build in your head, and it's very twitchy. There's always stuff going on. And behind many of the stickiest experiences in the world are these game-like characteristics. Now, it's important to understand that gamification is not just about putting badges on a website. Because many people think, when they think of gamification, they think, oh, I'm gonna put some badges on something. And I'll tell you something, badges are great, but they're not enough. That's not all that's in a good gamified system. It's also important not to make everything into a game, because not everything lends itself well to being really a game. We don't need to put in a hero and a villain and a princess and a dragon and, like fighting orcs in order to make something interesting. Many things in the real world are really interesting just the way they are. And what gamification attempts to do is take the best ideas from games and make those things more compelling. So I'm gonna show you some examples of gamification, some ideas about it today that relate, hopefully, to some extent to the social media context that we're in. Just a brief introduction about me, if you don't know who I am. I'm Gabe Zickerman. I'm the author of 3 books on the subject of gamification. My latest is called The Gamification Revolution. It's not yet available in Arabic, but it is available in English and a bunch of other languages. I edit the main website at gamification.co. I run a consultancy called Dopamine. We work with all kinds of companies, big and small. We also built lots of cool applications based on gamification, including LiveCube, which is a live event gamification application that you can use. It's a lot of fun and answers the question about how gamification can drive engagement for a room full of people in the real world, whether that's at conferences or live theater and so on. And we run a conference called G Summit, which is a gamification event, and I really hope to bring that event to this region at some point in the next year. So hopefully we'll be able to get together and talk about it here. So, what is it that makes games so fun? Why is it that so many people love to play games and love to engage with gamified systems? And the answer is what we call the 3 Fs. Feedback, friends, and fun. Feedback, friends, and fun. Feedback is how the system tells you how you're doing. And games are very good at giving you feedback, right? Think about your job. Your boss is probably not so good at giving you feedback. You're lucky if you get feedback once a year. But in a game, you're getting feedback every second because it's telling you how you're doing. Friends are your social graph, right? The more you can integrate those people into an experience, the more fun it is. Just the same way with going out for a cup of coffee or tea. And fun. And fun is a little bit more complicated. Everybody sees fun in a slightly different way. So it's important when we think about making experiences fun that we come up with ways to make that dynamic for the people who are involved. So let me give you an example, and you can see if you think this is fun. Now, you guys, I'm sure, all familiar with Domino's, the American pizza company. I don't know if you have it here in Dubai. Some of you are shaking your head yes. I'm sorry for you. I don't recommend eating at Domino's, but I do think they have a really interesting story. So Domino's has built this application called Pizza Hero. It's Domino's Pizza Hero. And it allows you to play the role of a pizza maker, a pizzaiolo. And in this game, you get the flour, the water, you make the dough, and you knead the dough out, and then you spin it like Luigi, and then you put like tomato sauce and cheese and vegetables on it, and you learn how to make a pizza in this game, and you flick your finger in the game, and the pizza is baked in real life at your closest Domino's and delivered to your house from inside the game. Learn to make a pizza in the game, buy the pizza in real life. This game generates $1 million in incremental revenue per week for Domino's in the United States. New revenue from this experience. And if you're very good at making a pizza, Domino's will invite you to apply for a job directly from inside the game. If you score very highly, you too can work at Domino's. Now, many people think this is kind of funny and interesting, but listen, you guys, you know this as social media people. What does this application replace? It replaces that totally fake corporate video, you know, that every company puts on their website. Domino's is the freshest pizza company in the whole world, right? You see this video, and then they come in, and the music is going, Domino's, ah. And you come inside the pizza shop, and there's like a very handsome guy, and he's very clean, because of course everybody's very clean, and they make this pizza, and they come in with the camera, and you look at this beautiful tomato that they're cutting, and you know it's all lies. Everything is a lie. And one thing that we know from the social media generation, nobody believes companies anymore. Do you believe companies when they say that? You don't believe it. It's not true. You know it's not true. You know they're making it up. The difference with this kind of experience is instead of the company telling you what it wants you to think about its brand, it lets you experience it with your hands. It lets you be in their brand. Instead of just learn about their brand, you do it with your hands. And that experience of making things more kinesthetic is so much more powerful at creating engagement with users. It's a completely different paradigm for thinking about it. And so other companies have leveraged this paradigm. Audi, for example, famously, in South Africa, to roll out the A3, Audi ran a gamified social media campaign. The more people in various cities tweeted about Audi using the hashtag, the more likely they were to get the Audi A3, which is a brand new car at the time, to drive to their city. So there was a truck, and the truck was responding to the tweet volume of people around South Africa. The more you tweeted, the more the truck would go there. The highest number of tweeting cities, and the cities were all shown on a leaderboard, right? So Audi got to invoke a very important concept in gamification, which is called tribalism, where one group of people competes against another group of people to achieve something. And I don't need to tell you, tribalism is a very important concept in driving people's behavior. And in this concept, it was one city against the other, so it can be kind of friendly competition. The top people, the people who tweeted the most, the ones who got the most attention, the most output and the most retweets related to the subject, got a chance to actually get the car. So ultimately, those top tweeters won the car. Or another one for Batman, The Dark Knight, a social media campaign that revealed the secrets of the movie to people who actually played along with this game online in real life. And it culminated with 10,000 people running around in the central square of San Diego one day, trying to figure out where this last clue for Batman was located. And one of those people who successfully found the last clue, the movie's organizers actually arranged for a fleet of black Escalades to show up and abduct the player in real life in San Diego. And they were put in the movie. So they got a cameo in the movie. That was the prize. But it all started with an online social media campaign to figure out who the Joker was. Or Autodesk, which is another company some of you might know makes 3D modeling software. So Autodesk was looking for a way to teach people how to use their 3D software. And they borrowed an idea from an old game called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And because making 3D models is actually very complicated, it's very hard to do. So people would download Autodesk software, but not know how to use it. So it was a waste. Everybody wasted money, nobody made any money. So Autodesk said, okay, let's make a little game-like experience out of that. And so what they did was, they taught you how to use their 3D modeling software by having you become a secret agent who goes on a series of missions to discover the answer to a puzzle. So each mission, you learned one aspect of the tool, like how to make a 3D object, how to move it, how to bounce it, how to light it, and you traveled around to solve this problem. Let me tell you that this application at Autodesk raised the total amount of time that people use the software by 40% and raised total revenue for the company by 17%. Just this little game. So very, very powerful stuff. So lastly, I just want to point out something about gamification that's probably obvious. Many people, when they hear the concept of game, they immediately think of kids. And they think, okay, games are for kids, that's what they're for. None of the examples that I've showed you so far were targeted specifically at children. And let me tell you something very important. The single biggest game-playing demographic in the world, the people who play more games than any other people in the whole world, are women over 40. They play way more games than even young teenage boys. In fact, if we call my mom right now, I promise you she's playing Candy Crush. It's the middle of the night in Toronto, but I promise you she's on Candy Crush. I guarantee it. And so all the time we think about gamification as being simple, as being for children, as being something that might be a throwaway idea. But in practice, everybody loves to play. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old, a man or a woman. It doesn't matter what culture you come from, how wealthy you are or how poor you are. Those things may determine which game is interesting. But the idea that games are by themselves interesting is universal. And if you use the concepts of gamification, like I've presented here, like the ones I talk about on gamification.co or in my book, you too can create extraordinary engagement and break that crisis of distraction. Thank you.